Hi, peace lovers, and welcome back. I'm Avis Kalfsbeck, and this is the Pieces Here podcast. We are currently in a fiction series here on the podcast titled Experiment Zero of the Peace Experiments. This is a 13-episode series following the reports of Kitty O'Compost, a small-town journalist with a sharp wit and a truth-telling goat named Marzipan. In this story, Kitty untangles the mystery of a global peace protocol through the lens of a local pothole, proving that the big questions of the world are usually hidden in the small things we walk over every day. It's a journey about the commons, the power of young people, and the quiet maintenance of peace. If you found us in the middle of this series, feel free to pop back to episode 184 to start the story from the beginning. In today's chapter, Kitty steps into a high school science lab where students test a dangerous idea that scarcity itself may be the problem, not human nature. Here is Chapter 6, The Science of Skepticism, Scarcity Edition. The next day, the clouds over Osprey Point hung low and thoughtful, like they'd stopped to listen in on the high school. On the sidewalk outside the main doors, I ran my census of the self. Kitty O'Compost equipped as follows: boots, damp and carrying a light film of playground dust, a soft blue shirt tucked into a dark corduroy skirt over leggings, formal enough for a classroom and flexible enough for goat wrangling, a barn jacket slung over one arm, a messenger bag containing a notebook, a recorder, the disarmament protocol packet folded carefully, and a pencil with teeth marks that were not mine, and Marzipan, anchored by her leash to the bike rack, glowering at the no animal sign as if it were a personal enemy. Inventory complete, I stepped into the building. The hallway smelled faintly of whiteboard cleaner and yesterday's spaghetti. Lockers slammed, someone laughed too loudly, and a poster reminded everyone to strive for excellence in a violently optimistic font. Room 213 buzzed before I even reached it. Inside, the science lab looked like Skepticism had been given a budget and told to have fun. Tables were cluttered with clipboards, markers, and half-built contraptions. On the counter sat an aquarium with a single unimpressed goldfish and a small compost bin with a handwritten label: Worm Neighborhood, Do Not Disturb. A teenager with short-cropped hair and a shirt smudged with soil and leaf stains was missed in the bin with a spray bottle. Miss Finch waved me in. Good, you're just in time for the scarcity test. Garrett, introduce your team for the record. Garrett stood at the central table with her notebook open, surrounded by classmates. She gestured with a smudged pen. Usha is on observation and harmonics, she said, nodding toward a girl with a heavy letter-bound music journal. Snapper's handling the reallocation site. The kid at the worm bin gave a sharp, practical nod. And Brick is our emotional barometer. Brick, a broad-shouldered boy with a shock of red hair and a plain gray hoodie, stood with his arms crossed, staring intensely at the center of the table. In front of them, on a paper plate guarded like a crown jewel, sat a single slice of cafeteria pizza. It was lukewarm, the cheese congealed, and the crust curled in existential confusion. "This is it?" I asked. "The precious resource?" "Last slice from the Friday special," a teen with a neck scarf called out, standing on a step stool at the edge of the group. "That's Myers," Garrett said to me with a head nod. "The final curtain for the pepperoni," Myers said gravely. "Scarcity in edible form," Garrett added. "Also, we're not sure how long it's been out," Snapper called from the counter. Their voice, flat and pragmatic, increases the tension. They'd written the myth at the top of their poster in block letters. Scarcity requires us to fight for resources. Underneath, in smaller, neater handwriting, was their hypothesis. If we deliberately remove the scarce item from circulation, compost it, cooperation may increase rather than decrease. So instead of sharing the pizza, I said, "You're transforming it?" Composting is not destruction, Garrett corrected. It's reallocation. At the far table, a kid called out, "We asked if we could use a phone charger instead, but Miss Finch said we are not dismantling anyone's actual charger." "Wise boundary," I said. Miss Finch clapped once and the small room quieted. "All right, scientists, Garrett's group will present their setup. Everyone else observe. You'll be allowed to copy or critique later." Garrett straightened. She wasn't grandstanding. This was courtroom mode again, precise and contained. "Our question," she said, "is whether scarce resources automatically make people selfish. Adults say yes. We think it's more complicated." She gestured to the pizza. "Traditional approach, you divide or assign the resource. Somebody gets more, somebody gets less, somebody gets nothing. You can call that fairness, but there's still a tiny war happening." She picked up the plate. "We're testing a different option, removing the object of scarcity entirely. Nobody gets it. We compost it. We observe what happens to the group." A murmur went through the class. Garrett continued, "Our measurements include changes in tone of voice, the number of cooperative suggestions, body language, and what people propose to do next." "And feelings," Brick added, his voice surprisingly soft for his size. "We're going to ask how everyone feels after the pizza is gone." "Feelings are data," Miss Finch said. "Proceed." The compost bin waited on the counter, its lid slightly ajar. A faint earthy smell drifted out, the scent of banana peels and coffee grounds turning into someday. Garrett looked at her group and asked if they were ready. They nodded. Myers made a theatrical bow to the slice. "We hardly knew ye." Garrett carried the plate to the bin, lifted the lid, and tipped the pizza in. It landed with a soft, resigned thud. Snapper immediately covered it with a handful of shredded pages of the Midway Beacon. Garrett started a timer on her watch. Observation period begins now. At first the room held its breath. Then the commentary started, quietly at first, then louder. "Well now, we all get 0, someone said. "That's fair, I guess." Usha raised her hand near the window. "Can we choose a different shared activity instead, like all getting hot chocolate after school or something?" "That's a cooperative proposal," Garrett said, scribbling. "New category." Within minutes the air shifted. The conversation was no longer about who deserved the slice. It was about what else they could do together that didn't hinge on one sad piece of food. "So," I whispered to Miss Finch, "you're teaching them to sidestep manufactured scarcity?" "They're teaching themselves," she said. "I'm just keeping them from composting the lab equipment." Garrett clicked off the timer. 5 minutes, she announced. "Now we survey." She moved from table to table with a short list of questions. "Did you feel more like fighting before or after the slice was composted? Did you come up with more ideas? Do you feel more connected to the group now?" Kids answered with surprising seriousness. "Less tense," one said. "It's like taking the toy away from toddlers. They stop biting each other." Brick nodded and recorded the answers. "I feel kind of sad, but also free," he admitted to a classmate, "like there's nothing to compete over, so we can just be weird." At her own table, Garrett wrote a provisional conclusion. Removing the scarce item did not reduce cooperation. It increased imagination. I wrote that down too. Around the room, other experiments blossomed. One group tested how many security measures they could invent against an invisible enemy. Another group workshopped a mandatory competition idea, trying to design a game where attempting to win guaranteed everyone lost. Through it all, Miss Finch moved like a patient conductor, redirecting and insisting that every claim be testable. She joined me near the aquarium. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm revising my sense of what constitutes a story," I admitted. "I thought the disarmament protocol was the big piece. It might just be the decoy." "And these?" She looked toward the teens. "The control group," I said. "The people who haven't broken anything yet and are trying very hard not to." Garrett approached with her notebook tucked under her arm. Preliminary findings, she said. It seems like when we refuse to fight over the scarce thing, we spend more time thinking of shared solutions. Any anger? I asked. Some, she said, but it doesn't last. There's nothing to hang on to. The object is gone, so the energy goes somewhere else. To what? Garrett closed her notebook. We're not sure yet. She looked up at me. Do you have any questions? Well, yes, I said. A slice of cafeteria pizza is one thing, but what about precious metals? Water, land, things adults call scarce. Garrett considered this and answered with calm certainty. We're scientists, Miss Ocampost. We don't accept other people's proclamation of what is scarce or precious. Outside, when the final bell rang, Marzipan pressed herself against my knees as if checking for damage. I knelt and scratched behind her ears. They composted the scarce thing, I told her, and nobody died. She scraped a firm half circle in the asphalt and flicked her tail toward the distant facility. I know, I said. The Anti-Commons is banking on us never thinking of that. On my walk home, I opened my notebook and wrote, Adults say scarcity makes us fight. Kids just prove scarcity can be composted. Underneath, I added, This isn't ideology. It's methodology. The sky above Midway hummed in quiet agreement. The experiments had truly begun. You've been listening to Experiment Zero of the Peace Experiments. I hope you'll join us for the next episode. My books and peace projects can be found at aviskaufsbeck.com, including the Pater the Water Dog Saves the Planet Best Friend Eco-Fiction series. For those who want to dive deeper into the peace themes we covered in 2025, I've created a 2025 recap ebook. It includes everything from Kitty Ocampo's satire debut to the deep history of the Great Disarmament. It's complimentary and available now at aviskaufsbeck.com/2025. Thank you again. Listen for the peace.